So in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how I clean my negatives. Often I get questions through email and direct messages, etc, and I'm often answering this one, which is how do I clean negatives? And I always say the same thing. This is how I clean the negatives, whether it's the right way or the wrong way. It's a way that works for me. And you know, with film photography, it is very difficult. If you're in a remote area like I am, there's nobody that I can just walk down the road and get a one-to-one tuition from. So everything I learn is self-taught, online, reading books and going from there, and a little bit of common sense as well. So when I look at the negative itself regarding cleaning, the first thing is try and keep your negative as clean as possible. You know, don't rough handle your negatives. If you rough handle them, then you're going to have to at some point get them cleaned. If you handle them very well, you know, holding by the edges, putting gloves on as well recommended for when you're touching negatives, when you're getting them out of sleeve, when you're scanning them, when you're putting them back. Try and keep your fingerprints off them all the time. That one's a given, you know, it's a no-brainer. But sometimes it's unavoidable, you accidentally touch them, etc, you get fingerprints on them. But the most common one is after you've developed your negative, you hang it up to dry and you get it out, you look at the light and you go, oh my God, I've got drying streaks on it. That's down to you to try and experiment and get the best way that you can to eliminate any drying marks when you're hanging your negatives out to dry. But that's the most common reason that people need to clean their negatives. And there's either one or two things. You can either rewash the negatives, which I don't really like doing. Sometimes I've had to, but it doesn't harm the negative either. If you just want to put the negative into lukewarm water, a little soapy water or something, and then hang it back out to dry, just give it a little tiny squeegee with your hands. Make sure you've got no, you know, rough parts on your fingernails or whatever. Just give it a light little squeegee through, hang it back out to dry, and see if the watermarks can clear. But if they don't, then you have to resort to, you know, lightly wiping your negatives and give them a little clean before you scan. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys how I clean these negatives, and I wholeheartedly welcome in the comments if I'm doing it wrong or if I'm going to damage the negatives long term, etc. And also I welcome in the comments what you guys do to clean your negatives, because I'm sure myself and a lot of other people would like to know as well. You read a lot of stuff online, you go online and you read so much stuff and it's all conflicting and it all gets very confusing, but until you try stuff yourself and it works for you and you stick with it, I think that's really pretty much what, you know, where you go long term with your own negatives with regards to cleaning them. So on this light panel is all this stuff that I use to clean my negatives. First of all is the 99.9% isopropyl rubbing alcohol. It cleans, removes grease, it says, and disinfects. I've always used this on my negatives and I've never had any problems at all with cleaning them. They cleaned off really well, gets everything off. You know, I've been using this for years. I've got no problems with, I'm seeing no problems with my negatives. So I've got 100% confidence and trust in this stuff. I put it into a spray bottle. And there it is there, okay. And the reason I do that is because I made this using a little microfiber cloth. This is actually the cloth from the glasses, for a pair of glasses, comes out of the glasses case. And I've got an old jewellery box which has got padding inside. It's like a little sponge, and I've made it that size, so it's ideal for rubbing along 120 film and also 35mm. All I do is just spray once or twice and then just lightly rub over the negative. So that's what I use that for. And I use either little tiny cotton pads here, which is for makeup and stuff, very fine, and also these PEC pads that were sent to me kindly by Silverprint. I've been using these things are fantastic. It says here non-abrasive wipes, lint-free, ultra soft. So let's get one of these out, and you can reuse one of these. You don't have to, it's only 25 in there, but one will last ages. Put that there, one will last ages. So there's my cloth there from the PEC pad, and obviously gloves, and I've got a rocket blower as well and a loop just to check for any scratches if I'm really paranoid about cleaning my negs. So first of all, I put my gloves on and I need to clean that negative, which we saw was a real mess. There it is there. Okay, I don't want to scratch it. Now there's two sides to the negative. That's the gloss side there, okay, and that is the emulsion side. That's where all the silver content is, and that is where your image is sitting there. It's not protected. you could scratch that very easily. So you've got to be very careful with the emulsion side. You'll notice the emulsion side because it's dull, usually dull, and the gloss side is, well, it's glossy. So the first thing I want to do is just use my rocket blower to blow away anything that might be trapped inside those sprockets, the sprocket holes there. That's that done. And then I'll use the wipe very softly. I'm not even going to push down hard. Just very softly, just in case there's any dust on there that I don't want to drag over the film when I wet it. So that's done. The next thing I do is use my pad. Just a couple of sprays, 1, 2 of the alcohol, and I'll just rub along once. Use the dry, and that dries very quickly, and twice. I'm not putting too much pressure down, you know, my fingers aren't going white at the tips. I'm not putting too much pressure, just enough to remove any stubborn stains that are on there. But I've only done one wipe so far that's pretty light, and if I look at the neg, I can still see there is a couple of stubborn stains on there. So this is still wet. I'll just go a little bit harder this time. It's a little bit harder, and use the same. You know, don't be scared to touch your negs. You've got to get these stains off. I'd rather do this than wash the whole negative again. Let's have a look this time. And I've got a totally clean negative on the gloss side and the emulsion side as well. If I did want to do the emulsion side, I don't like doing the emulsion side generally. I don't really want to put any alcohol on it, so I just very lightly go over. If there is a stubborn stain on the emulsion side, you've got to be very careful. Some negatives I've noticed are very, very easily scratched, and others are a bit more hardcore. So I've still got alcohol on this microfiber cloth, so we just run across very softly. Like I say, you don't want to go hard on the emulsion side, and just dry that little bit off. Like so, that was pretty soft, but generally most of your dry marks will be on the gloss side and not on the emulsion side. I'm just looking through the light now, and I've got no marks left on it at all. I'm just left with a nice clean negative, and I'm using this light panel as well because this is where I place my negatives all the time. It's very smooth, it's not abrasive at all, so it's not going to harm the negatives at all. And the last thing I do is just use my loupe just to take the paranoia out, make sure that I haven't scratched any of my negs. You'll soon know because you'll have nice long lines going along them. Sometimes you can get deceived by information on the actual photograph and you think, oh, is that a scratch? But it's just, there's not, and there's no scratches on that at all. The only time you'll find you'll scratch your negative is if there's a piece of grit or dirt on there, and you know, you've just rubbed it across and it's scored along the gloss side, or even worse, the emulsion side. So you just got to be very careful not to scratch your negs. That's how I clean my negatives. I also use these are makeup cotton pads, if you like. Are very, very soft. I can use these as well. I've used these plenty of times. If you haven't got any of these PEC pads, I used these before. And again, I use my little microfiber cloth again. Make sure you hold it down firm as well. What you don't want to do is, as you go along the negative, if you're going to put a little bit more pressure on it, you don't want the negative to slide and get, you know, and be rubbed against the light panel or whatever your surface is. There's more chance of you roughing up the emulsion if you do that. So make sure you've got a firm grip on it as you go along. So let's try it again. Once, and then just dry it off with these pads. Not too heavy. And there you go, job done. One clean negative. And of course there's no fingerprints on this neg whatsoever because I've been having my gloves on all the time. All I need to do now is just let it sit there with the others that I'm going to clean, and leave them there for about an hour to dry off. You know, just in case that you don't want to put these inside sleeves if the alcohol is still sitting on there. So, but I know that they're dry, but I always leave them there for about an hour, and then just before I put them in the sleeves, just blow any dust off that might sit on there like so, and then put them into my sleeve. And generally before I clean any of my negatives, I always take the leader. I always keep the leader, because the leader can tell you a lot about your development at the time. So I always keep my leaders, and this is a leader from that film. So I always use the leader and just do a quick test on it first, just to make sure that my rubbing alcohol isn't sticking to the emulsion. Certain emulsions on certain films are different, so, and also the bases as well, so or the film itself, they're all different. So I always use the leader just to do a little test with. And some people use, I've got some stuff here. This is optic cleaning fluid, which I think is for obviously glass, maybe DSLR sensors, I don't know, but let's try that. I'll just put a few drops. It seems to go on nicely. Rub that off, and I'll just go on the other side. It doesn't seem to damage the negative at all. It's not sticking, it's not being tacky. So another thing I've heard about is lighter fluid as well. Some people use lighter fluid to clean their negatives. I don't think I have, but be careful, don't have any cigarettes around you when you're doing this. Not that I think alcohol might be flammable as well, I don't know, but I'm just using lighter fluid now. On one side, rub that off, that seems to have done the job as well. Let's go on the emulsion side. That's a little bit, no, that's okay, it's gone on smooth as well. I've got more smears on there than I did with the rubbing alcohol, funny enough. That's probably the lighter fluid, so I wouldn't use that personally. Maybe some people do. And I've got another brand of DSLR cleaner here. This is for the sensors on DSLRs. Similar stuff as the other bottle that I use. That's gone on nicely. Let's do the other side, emulsion side. All right. That's really gone tacky. That's eaten into the emulsion, that one. So that's certainly one I wouldn't use. I can feel the, look at that. Yeah, that's no good. Use your loaf and use the leader part first before you start experimenting with anything else like lighter fluid or optic cleaning stuff. Like I say, I always use the alcohol, and that works best for me. So that's how I clean my negatives, and some people do it the same way, some people do it differently. You can buy emulsion cleaner online. I've never bought that stuff. That 99.9% alcohol has always been fine for me. But the only time I ever have to clean my negs is through drying marks. I'm always handling my negs very carefully, especially when I store them and when I get them back out again. I use the gloves or I hold the negatives on the sides as much as I can. But now and again you do get the odd fingerprint on where you've been a little bit sloppy and you have to give it a little clean, you know. Anyway guys, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it's been helpful to anybody. Like I said, let us know in the comments how you clean your negs and what with. I'd love to know. Like I say, there's not too many people around where I live that can personally show me how they do it.